In today's video on Homes Explained, we're taking a closer look at Romanesque Revival architecture, one of the most distinctive and dramatic styles of the 19th century, known for its massive stonework, its rounded arches, and its castle-like towers. It made for a very bold statement. We'll cover the history of Romanesque Revival and how it came to be, the defining exterior as well as interior features so you know how to spot one, and finally the legacy this very rare style has left behind. The term Romanesque comes from its resemblance to ancient Roman architecture, especially the use of rounded arches, thick masonry walls, and fortress-like proportions. It actually has no connection to the Romany people, despite the similarity in the words. The original Romanesque period in Europe roughly spanned the 11th and 12th centuries, where buildings were designed for durability, stability, and defence. In the mid-19th century, British architects began reviving the style, adapting medieval European stone castles and churches for modern use. And this movement crossed the Atlantic in around the 1840s, introduced largely through immigrant architects who had trained in Europe. In the United States, the style found its most famous champion in Henry Hobson Richardson in the 1870s. His distinctive interpretation, known as the Richardsonian Romanesque, which doesn't exactly trip off the tongue, blended medieval European forms with modern American needs, using bold sculptural stonework, dramatic arches, and prominent towers. His work inspired not only civic and institutional buildings, but also a small number of ambitious private homes. Because the style demanded skilled masons, high-quality stone, and complex detailing, it remained a very expensive choice to build. Most Romanesque Revival homes were built between 1840 and 1900 in wealthy urban areas, particularly in the Northeast and the Midwest. Today, some of the best examples can still be seen in cities like Boston, Chicago, St. Paul, and Philadelphia, as well as parts of New York and Cincinnati, where late 19th century architecture has been carefully preserved. And while size and detailing of Romanesque Revival homes vary, of course, in all these different places, they do share a set of unmistakable traits. So let's take a look at the exterior identifying features to help you recognize this very distinctive style. And first up, the foundation of the Romanesque Revival design is the substantial masonry work. Walls were often built from rough-faced or rusticated stone or brick, giving the building a sense of weight and permanence. This kind of work demanded the skill of highly trained stonemasons and access to quality materials, making it costly to build. As a result, Romanesque Revival homes were typically commissioned by the wealthiest of homeowners and sadly remained a rarity in residential architecture. The second exterior feature and one of the style's most eye-catching elements are the towers and turrets. Now, just to explain the difference between the two, because people often get confused between towers and turrets, a tower rises from the ground up and is fully integrated into the structure, whereas a turret kind of projects from an upper level. It's typically rounded or circular and has a conical roof. Both serve as excellent focal points for the house, giving the property a kind of castle-like silhouette as well as breaking up the mass of the facade. The third exterior signature feature are the rounded arches. These can be found above windows, doors, and porch openings, with the depth and heft of these arches contributing to the style's monumental appearance, while also echoing the Roman heritage which gives the style its name. Next up is the asymmetrical massing, because Romanesque Revival homes are rarely uniform. In fact, they have a very irregular form with projecting bays, recessed entryways, and very varied roof lines. This asymmetry creates visual interest from every angle and allows towers, turrets, and porches to stand out as distinctive architectural features. The fifth exterior feature is the broad front porch or partial wraparound porch, often executed as a series of rounded stone arches supported by short, weighty columns with carved capitals. These porches were substantial and built from the same masonry as the rest of the home, so they felt architecturally integrated rather than just decorative. raised several feet above the ground and sometimes continuing along the one side of the home. They provided a very grand and regal entrance. And finally, windows are often paired or arranged in a set of three, typically unified under a single rounded arch. Many are deeply set in the thick masonry walls, creating a very shadowy kind of recessed vibe. And on the interior, you may see stained or leaded glass for kind of colour and craftsmanship, particularly in stairwells and formal living areas. Now that we've covered the exterior, let's step inside and see how the Romanesque Revival carries through on the interior. But firstly, I've got a favour to ask, because if you're enjoying this video and you've seen any of my other videos, please consider subscribing. I'm trying to reach 500 subscribers by the end of August, so it would really help me out. Okay, back to the Romanesque Revival, and the first interior feature is the dramatic entry hall, which immediately conveys a sense of permanence. This entry most likely features a sweeping staircase with thick carved newel posts and substantial balusters. Wood panelling, decorative moulding, and either a patterned tile or parquet floor reinforces the whole sense of craftsmanship and grandeur. Next up, the rounded arch, so prominent on the exterior, appears on the interior as well, framing doorways, alcoves and passageways. Often finished in wood or stone, these arches soften the transition between rooms, still reflecting the home's solid and weighty architecture. In some houses, these arches are paired with thick supporting columns or even carved capitals, echoing the medieval buildings that inspired the style. The third defining interior feature was the fireplace. Built from heavy stone or brick, they dominate the living room, parlour and library. Many feature carved surrounds or decorative tile, and they served as both a functional heat source as well as very much a statement piece. Rich woodwork was the fourth defining interior feature, with Romanesque Revival interiors showcasing a level of craftsmanship that speak to the skill of the late 19th century artisans. Oak, walnut, mahogany were all often used for panelling, decorative moulding, window and door casing, as well as built-in cabinetry. Ceilings might feature exposed beams or intricate coffered designs, while staircases, mantels and wainscoting displayed hand-carved ornamentation. These rich details weren't just decorative, they were a visible sign of the home's quality as well as a status symbol of the homeowner's wealth. And finally, unlike modern open floor plans, Romanesque Revival homes are arranged as a series of distinct rooms, each with a dedicated function, such as parlours, libraries and dining rooms. This approach was very much in keeping with the Victorian era floor plans, where homes were designed to separate public and private spaces, as well as formal and informal areas. The grand entertaining rooms were placed at the front of the house, while the service areas and private family spaces were tucked at the back or on the upper levels. And the result is a layout that reflects the 19th century preference for formality, privacy, and clearly defined spaces. Romanesque Revival homes have always been rare in the American residential landscape, and their scarcity today makes them even more treasured. Many have been preserved in historic districts valued for their craftsmanship, architectural pedigree and sheer presence. The style's influence is still visible in public and institutional architecture, where its rounded arches and heavy masonry became shorthand for permanence and authority. And while Romanesque Revival homes may be rare, their presence is unforgettable, combining history, craftsmanship and imposing stature. If you've enjoyed learning about the Romanesque Revival, please help me get to 500 subscribers by the end of August, and I'll see you next week for more Homes Explained.